Vice President Harris to reflect on the 2024 loss, hear her thoughts on last night's address, and ask her the pointed questions about Iran, the upcoming 2026 midterm elections, and more. I want you to watch it. I want you to let me know what you think. And I want you to spread the word. The more you like, comment, share, engage, the more people see this. And I think everyone needs to see the vice president's response to Donald Trump's address and what she would have said had she been essentially behind that podium. Here is my interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. I am so excited to be joined by Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, Madam Vice President, I got to get your reaction to last night's State of the Union address from the President of the United States. Did you watch it? What did you think?
I watched it. It was full of lies. And, when he wasn't lying, it reminded me of our kids going to show and tell at school. It was nothing that was true about really how the American people right now, so many are suffering under the weight of high prices, unaffordable healthcare, unaffordable housing. And it was, we've come to expect it. And, some people have said it was really quite boring and that there was nothing very interesting about it because it was the same old, same old. The guy lying about what he intends to do, what he has done, and the state of our economy and the state of the world.
I got to ask you, he said that the State of the Union is strong. Do you agree?
Absolutely not. Let me tell you, Aaron, I've been traveling our country, and in particular, I've been spending a lot of time in the South. Let me tell you, I was recently in Mississippi. I went grocery shopping with a mother of 3 children who has a weekly family food budget for the 4 of them of $150. We were at a discount grocery store, and she basically let me know that anything that was in the cart was going to be for her kids. I asked her, well, what is for you? And she said, whatever they don't eat, and this is when she started actually tearing up, whatever they don't eat, then she'll eat. She walked over to get bottled water because she can't drink tap water because the water is brown and toxic. This is America. I met with a parent of children. She is documented. Her children were born in the United States. And she is petrified and was telling me about women in her community who are not going to the hospital to give birth for fear of what might happen to them and their child. She also told me how her health insurance was previously $30 a month. It's gone up to $85 a month, and she's probably not going to receive health care unless it's in the emergency room. This is America. And so when this guy is up there talking about the economy is roaring and, trying to evoke images, I guess, of the roaring 20s of a day gone by, he's lying. Who's it roaring for? When you put a $1 trillion cut to Medicaid, you know what Medicaid funds? Families with children, pregnant women, seniors, people with disabilities. A $1 trillion cut to Medicaid. Meanwhile, a $1 trillion tax cut for the richest people in America. That's what's happening in our country right now. So, there was entertainment value to what he did, but in terms of any substantive value to the people of America, I'd say it was lacking in every way.
Now, something else the president spoke about last night was a SAVE Act in the upcoming elections. Yeah. He called on Congress to pass the SAVE Act. Is that something that you believe Congress should do?
Absolutely not. So let's break this down on voting rights. First of all, we know that we've been seeing a pattern over decades of an explicit attempt to destroy and gut the Voting Rights Act. And that already has started to take form, including that his Supreme Court, the majority that, and he purposely selected people on the court that would destroy the Voting Rights Act. And they're about to decide on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is the remaining piece that would allow people to sue if there is evidence of racial discrimination in the way that the lines are being drawn. The Supreme Court is about to get rid of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. You look at what they did to initiate an attack on redistricting, right? Mid-decade. It's supposed to happen every decade around the census. They did it before then because they want to change the system to bend the rules and to cheat, because they are so concerned that this guy is so unpopular because he's done nothing for the American people that they're going to wholesale lose the midterms. What else have they done? The SAVE Act. You know what the SAVE Act would do? Require that people show a birth certificate or a passport to register to vote. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's something like 40% of Americans don't have those documents. Married women, if you changed your name when you got married, it's going to be different than what's on your birth certificate, right? And what that's going to do in terms of complicating the ability of women to register to vote. And so this is happening in real time to suppress and obstruct the ability of people to vote. And then my concern, frankly, Aaron, is that when we saw what happened in Minneapolis, I think we need to really understand that in addition to everything that was obvious about it, it might have been basically a demonstration and a beta testing of militarizing the streets of America to intimidate people against voting, and using federal officials to intimidate people to not vote. So we need to be clear-eyed and alert to what might be at play around these midterms, because obviously he is one of the most unpopular presidents ever in the history of the United States. His agenda is one of the most unpopular in the way it has played out. And then, Aaron, I'll also say, let's be prepared, because if, as many predict, we win the midterms, if we don't win by substantial numbers, I can see a situation where they find some reason to refuse to seat Democrats who win. And, we saw that happen around Grijalda and that situation, and they delayed it for weeks. I could see the same thing happening. And look, the election in the midterms is one of the, if not the only way that in the immediate future we can put some checks on the abuse of power coming from Donald Trump and this administration. It's one of the only ways. We still have 3 co-equal branches of government, and this Congress led by the Republicans right now is feckless. They have abandoned their responsibility, whether it be power of the purse or the power to make decisions about war. They have ceded their responsibility. It's interesting. The founders talked about how, we can imagine that we'll have a Congress that will jealously guard their power. They didn't predict this group. So let's be alert and continue, as is happening all over the country, to organize people around the power of their voice in so many ways, whether it's those incredible people who showed up in Minneapolis, coming out of their homes in the cold with a whistle to blow and alert people about a harm that is happening in their community, whether they're pulling out their phones to make sure that we document these abuses. What we're seeing around the country with people who are running for office who have never run before and they're winning. One of the things that happened last night in Pennsylvania, 2 elections that, some predicted could never have happened, wasn't possible. Democrats winning. So we've got momentum, and we must be alert, because there are powerful forces intentionally attempting to destroy our democracy and the voice of the people. And the power, however, still remains with the people. And so we know what we got to do.
Now, I got to ask, you mentioned the power of Congress to declare war. Donald Trump last night mentioned Iran again. We currently have the largest military buildup in the Middle East since 9/11. As vice president, you were deeply involved in foreign policy efforts for several years. Do you believe, based on what you know, that war in Iran would be justified?
Well, first of all, let's just go back to recent history. Remember, he said that he completely eviscerated their program? Remember, many of us talked about the fact that that was complete and utter BS. We knew it. But he insisted, I got rid of the whole thing. And now he is sending American troops to the region with the very real potential that American men and women will be deployed to combat. And what I know to be true is the American people do not want another war and do not want our sons and daughters sent to initiate action that is and can be avoided through diplomacy, through a number of things, but including through just honesty. The guy shouldn't have lied in the first place to suggest that he wiped out the program, and now he's got to back up, I guess his ego and have this display of force. To what end? What the American people don't want is that the end of that is about the lives of our young men and women being killed, being ended because of his ego and his incompetence as it relates to foreign policy. And it bears mentioning that our allies on this issue do not agree with the tack that the president has taken. And part of America's strength globally, whether it be through what historically was one of the strongest and most effective military treaties in the world, NATO, through the partnership that we have had that is in many cases based in history of allyship and consistency and truth and standing for international rules and norms, he is weakening across the board. America's strength, as much as anything, is yes, because of the best military in the world. It is also because we have cultivated allies who stand with us when we are in a position where we believe that there may be conflict. And he has weakened to such an extreme extent the relationships between America and allied nations. That does not bode well for national security.
Now, before I let you go, looking at the State of the Union today, I think a lot of folks watching this would have wished that you were behind the podium last night instead of Donald Trump. Is there anything that you regret from the 2024 campaign that could have changed last night's reality?
Oh, I have many regrets. I mean, I wrote a book about it, right? And so here I'll just say, read the book, everybody. But there were so many variables at play in the election, and I think for me and my state of mind, my focus is not on what could have been as much as what we need to do right now and the vision we need to have for the future of our country. That's where my head is.
All right. Well, Vice President Harris, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's good to be with you. Take care.
Hey, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to add this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify,